Hey everybody, this is Harvey Sunny Wasserman back for the 258th Green Grassroots Emergency Election Protection Coalition Zoom call. As you might guess, we got a ton going on. We are not letting Donald Trump set our agenda today. We are going to start with a report from Minnesota as to a really important stuff still going on there with the ICE Gestapo invasion there. We're going to get report from our Queen of Minnesota, Hedy Tripp, and we're going to talk about what's going on there. Then we're going to talk about a bit about homelessness, which was scheduled before the latest insane war from Trump. We have Rodney, Sadler, Susie, Shannon, Joel Segal. Then we're going to have Heather Booth talk to us about organizing and all that stuff. And she's got some
on the election.
News about a meeting tonight. And we want to greet Frances Piven, one of the great writers and presences of the progressive movement in this country. She's only 25, so she's really been at it for a short period of time, but made a huge impact. And then we're going to deal with what I consider actually the most frightening thing that happened this past weekend, which was not the attack on Iran, but the purchase by Ellison and Trump of Warner, which includes CNN. And we now have Trump controlling CBS, CNN, and much of the rest of the major media. And we have Jeff Cohen, Roger Rapoport, Ken Wachsberger, and some other really important people to talk about this media situation, which I think is incredibly important. And then we're going to get, we posted from freepress.org, hi, Lisa Matras, we posted from freepress.org 13 pillars of the Trumpocalypse. So we're going to get deep into this insanity in Iran, but I'm insisting on maintaining some sanity here. So I want to start with Hedy Tripp, and as I say, we'll go from Minnesota to the homeless issue, and then to Heather Booth, Frances, and the whole situation in Iran, and then into the media. Okay, so Hedy Tripp, I think it's quite hilarious that you've put a beach background and you are in St. Cloud, Minnesota. I've always thought that the greatest slogan in the modern movement is ICE out of Minnesota, but here we are. So Hedy, you've been giving us reports on the ground. Your children are within a block or two of the two murders that occurred at the hands of ICE in Minneapolis. What do you want to tell us now about what's happening? We have 59 people with us.
Thanks, Sonny. I'm actually calling folks from Minneapolis. I have a place near my kids, so I am in Minneapolis. And I'm going to share the screen for folks that are on, what you call it?
On the screen, on the video.
Can you see the video for those who can't see it?
Well, go ahead and talk. We'll hopefully get there.
Okay. Pretty and Good's ICE murderers have still not been arrested or convicted. Yesterday was Pretty's birthday. Detainees have been placed in the Bishop Henry Whipple Federal Detention Center in Fort Snelling. This is near the MSP airport, and it houses the Minnesota ICE field office. Now, Congressman Ilhan Omar, who, by the way, has come out very strongly against the bombing in Iran, and also Congresswoman Angie Craig tried to inspect the building a week ago, but ICE cleared it out of all the detainees for a visit, and so she saw nothing there. But agents have been starting to go back in. Yesterday, that is
Sunday.
March the 1st, there are about 750 folks that were involved. Now, near the Whipple building, there is a TP camp by the Dakota and Lakota community people. You have to remember that Fort Snelling is where 38 Dakota men were hanged in December 26, 1982. Anyway, bring the heat, melt the ice. Last week, I reported that there was a week-long training sessions of teach-ins. So yesterday, March 1st, demonstrators gathered at the Whipple building, but they were arrested. And I have on this call a good friend of mine, Jonathan Kent, and he was there. So, Jonathan, if you can give us a brief on-the-ground report of what was happening at the detention center with the resistors. Jonathan?
So, Jonathan, this is at the ICE Detention Center in the center of Minneapolis. 750 people demonstrating against ICE and against the detention center. Is that correct? Okay.
Yeah, that's correct. And
Remember, you're on radio. We love to see you shaking your head, but we're on the radio, so you got.
oh yeah, sure. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me, and to Hedy for plugging me into this community. Yeah, I was there yesterday at the Whipple Federal Building, along with hundreds of others, and this was the essentially culmination of a week of action that of various political education events and actions, protests, really an ongoing effort to push back and increase visibility and maintain momentum in really getting ICE out of Minnesota, doing whatever it takes. There's many people, and maybe you've heard it from Hedy or others, but essentially the common language that I choose to use, and others who live here and see a lot happening locally, is that the state continues to be under occupation. That is what's going on, and hence the protest. So to keep it short, there was a gathering of hundreds of people. It was beautiful out. You couldn't have asked for a nicer weather, especially given we're in cold Minnesota. And then after peaceably assembling and having signs up and walking around the perimeter, and one thing to note, I don't know how many are familiar with what actually the building looks like, but essentially you're talking about a federal building that was not long ago open to even publicly accessible, and that's where immigration status hearings were happening, and freely accessible by the public. I attended one of those, and there were already, with the presence of ICE going back several months, there were already weekly protests organized outside of the facility. The reason I bring all this up is that more recently, and as you may have seen in coverage or pictures, the entirety of the perimeter is covered by concrete and essentially some equivalent of barbed wire or wire fencing. So when you go there, you just really feel like you are in an occupied zone. And so the road, the main road, is really, there's a road that divides. On one side, you have the Whipple Federal Building, the parking lot, and there's a parking person who lets people in and out. That's essentially the reason there's protesters that are there strategically, is to shame and throw objects. You may have seen what some of those were, and I can leave it to your imagination, but also just literally publicly shame the agents that are coming in and out. And on a more practical level, also being there to receive anyone who may be leaving the facility. And one of the tactics that the administration is using, and the ICE agents, is to release in the dead of night, literally middle of the night oftentimes, any number of people who have been detained for open-ended periods of time. So the whole idea is to receive those people with food and open arms, and to make sure that they have a place to go, a place to stay, that kind of thing. And I'll also just briefly add that of the people in the crowd yesterday, you had people from all over the country and even world participating, a lot of journalists. So there are a lot of eyes on this, and hopefully the idea is to continue to call attention to the unconstitutional occupation and illegal actions of this administration. And it's a war on people from within. And I'll wrap it up by saying that I personally saw with my own eyes, and I think this is what led to Hedy inviting me to share a bit today. It's one thing, the brute force used by the federal agents, and then you had at upwards of roughly, say, dozens, if not 100 plus sheriff officers, deputies, who were really on the perimeter, and really the front line of pushing back on the protesters. And you can see if you do searches, and I could, I guess if I, there are things circulating showing people being arrested and detained who were otherwise peaceably assembling and peacefully protesting. And I can go on and on, but I saw with my own eyes gross constitutional violations, violating any number of amendments. It's hardly a surprise, but I think the most concerning part is that these are Hennepin County law enforcement officers, and and the reality is that whatever the governor may be saying, or city officials, public officials, the attorney general, I think that they, on the one hand, their hearts may hopefully be in the right place and truly wanting to get ICE out of here. And then there's the practical reality that these law enforcement individuals are very much working, if not in tandem, they are certainly making it difficult for people to peacefully and directly participate in their constitutional right to protest, freedom of the press, of assembly, all that. So, and it got violent and it got nasty, and it was really hard to watch.
Yeah, and the 38 people who were cited and released yesterday, one person was jailed, but there's an amazing picture for those who can't see it, or you can go online. They have made, the protesters or resistors have made shields out of old barrels, of plastic barrels, and big boards. And
yeah, we can see it.
It's amazing.
Well, ironically, Hedy, it says here that the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office says 38 people were cited and released, and one person was jailed. 38 is the number of indigenous people who were hanged in Mankato in 1862.
Yeah.
The story is the white people in Minnesota, there was an uprising. The white people in Minnesota wanted to hang over 300 indigenous. Lincoln stepped in, somehow got it down to 38, but 38 is the number of people in Mankato in 1862, in the middle of the Civil War, by the way, that were hanged right then and there. Well, so basically, you're telling us first person, we have 77 people with us, that this was yesterday.
Yesterday.
This was when the whole world was watching as Trump bombed Iran. This is still going on in Minnesota. It's shocking. And Jonathan, thank you for your bravery in going out there on your own. We hope you're well. And as my mother would say, be careful. but you know.
Yeah, thank you so much. My mom too. She'd appreciate you saying that. Thank you for having me, and I'll stay tuned. Thank you.
Thank you, and Hedy, thank you for bringing.
And Jonathan, feel welcome.
Go ahead, Hedy.
I was just telling Jonathan he was welcome to stay and listen in.
Yes,
I will. Thank you, Hedy.
And Hedy, you've told me that your children watch over you like a hawk in Minneapolis, and I'm right there with them. So Hedy and I, we had lunch with her and Mila a week ago here in LA. So I'm glad you're back there on the case. Thank you for your report. Mila Reeson was with us at that lunch, and Mila, many of us have read. You said, Jonathan, that there was support people to meet the people being released by the police. And tragically, we've had someone die in Buffalo that was not taken care of. Mila, we want to honor that person. Mila, do you want to tell us that story, please? And then we're going to move on. Yeah. I don't see Rodney Sadler or Susie Shannon. Raise your hands, guys, if you're here. But go ahead, Mila, tell us that story, please.
So this was a very tragic story of Nurul Amin Shah Alam. He was a Rohingya refugee, didn't speak any English, nearly blind, disabled, needed some support to.
All right. Can anybody else hear Mila? Mila, did you go quiet on
Sorry about that.
All right, go ahead. Go.
So I thought I was going, but anyway, let me continue. Nurul Amin Shah Alam Rohingya refugee, nearly blind, couldn't speak English, and couldn't walk very well. He had walked to a hardware store to get a couple of curtain rods to use as canes. He got lost, wandered into a neighbor's yard, and the police were called, and they tased him and beat him up. And he was in jail for over a year. His lawyer actually thought he would be safer in jail because if he were not in jail, he would be picked up by Border Patrol and deported. And then when the judge ordered that he be released, Border Patrol took him to a closed coffee shop in Buffalo, New York, in the winter, in the night, freezing cold weather, and just dropped him off with little paper booties, no shoes, in the freezing cold at a closed coffee shop, and didn't call his family, and he was a missing person. People were looking for him for 5 days, and then after 5 days they found that he had frozen to death. And it's just a tragic story. And there was a big memorial for him in Buffalo this past weekend, and the whole Buffalo community coalesced. It's really too bad that they weren't there to see him when he was released. A very tragic story.
So we honor say his name again, please.
Yes, his name. Sorry, I had it in.
Okay.
It's Nurul Amin Shah Alam.
Okay, well, we mourn him and we apologize for the terrible treatment he got from our government. So thank you for that. I do not see Susie, Shannon, or Rodney Sadler, or Joel Segal. Heather Booth, are you ready to talk to us about organizing and moving forward? You said there's an event tonight.
I was asked to speak about the elections, which is
Yes,
taking the organizing and moving it from
yes,
protest to power. But I wanted to at least start by thanking all of you on this call for what you do every single day. Harvey Sonny Wasserman, I love your middle name now that let the sun shine in, one of the great anti-nuclear organizers. We know your reputation. And Mike Hirsch, I want to call out, who's a person who does the work every day, not always getting the credit. PDA overall, Hedy Tripp, Jonathan Kent, all those who've been on. And
well,
but I just
Heather, quickly, I want to acknowledge someone else. We brought her on to talk about housing, but I don't see Rodney Sadler. Susie, maybe we'll talk about housing in a week, but I want you to know Susie Shannon. Susie is here from Los Angeles. She's one of the great organizers on the homeless issue. Susie, meet Heather Booth, please. You two should be in touch.
I am glad to meet all of you, either directly or indirectly.
Susie,
the main lesson that I've learned over 60 years in organizing.
Harvey, we also have Mayor Hedy.
Oh, Mayor Hedy is.
Yes.
Oh, Mayor Hedy need to go on now?
I don't. Yeah.
Yes. Go. Heather,
okay.
can you tell us quickly what you do? Tell us about the meeting tonight. Then I want to introduce you and let them speak briefly about what they do, and then we'll come back to talk about the election, because that's a big.
Well, Sonny, real quick.
I have another call I have to jump to. I thought the timing was a little different, but
go ahead and talk quickly. Heather, tell us what you do. Tell us about the meeting tonight, and you'll come back. Because Susie and Mayor maybe Mayor Hedy are here as well. So give us 5 minutes if you can, Susie and Hedy, and you'll know exchange contacts with Heather Booth. So go ahead, Heather, please.
The main lesson I've learned from organizing, from the civil rights movement, from the women's movement, from the labor movement, from one effort after another that's represented amongst all of you in the work that you do, and actually the way that you inspire. In fact, one way I inspire people now is simply by saying Minneapolis.
Yes.
And the inspiring work. I understood there were 100,000 people coming out in freezing weather. Our numbers are rising. Our power is building. So thank you all for what you're doing. And the main lesson I have learned.
I'm on Zoom.
is that when we organize, I believe with love at the center, and we keep organizing, we have changed this world. We can change this world. We will change this world. And we are right now in a situation that is amongst the most dire in my life's history of over 60 years of organizing. But we are a rising force. Our numbers are growing. The opposition's numbers are declining. And people are coming out, and we are moving from protest to power. If you ask me, Harvey, what I'm working on right now, I'm working on something called Battleground Alliance. And it is an attempt to move from the protest into power to gain one of the levers of power in the election. And we are building coordinated efforts in 40 marginal Republican congressional districts, but starting now in March and investing in organizations on the ground, building our power together with neighbor to neighbor. We call it a know your neighbor engagement. So you're knocking on a door, not saying, come vote for me and my candidate. You're knocking on a door saying, my utility rates have gone up 100%. I'm not sure what to do. What's your situation? We have a meeting on it in a week. Would you come join us? What's going on in your life? And so we connect and work with people in a direct way, just as PDA does.
Well, stay with us now, Heather. And Susie, I'm sure you know, and Heidi, who Heather Booth is. She's a legendary organizer. And we met briefly. I was at the University of Chicago in '68, getting my head cracked by the police during the convention. I don't know if you suffered physical injury that year, Heather, but
you were thrown through the window of the Conrad Hilton Hotel.
Oh, you were thrown through that window?
It's a longer story, but they had to break the window because otherwise we were going to be crushed.
Well, Lisa Matros, who's on the call with us, we were standing together at the corner of Michigan and Balboa, and Lisa and I were just on the side of the solid wall, and right next to us, the police broke through the window of a restaurant and threw people in, and then went into the restaurant and beat people up. Is that where you got hit?
It's a longer story.
Okay. Well, but listen, so here we are. Now, put the link to your website, please, Heather, in the chat. And now you're talking about door-to-door organizing. Now, we talk a lot about elections on this call. So you are talking, and we've got, I don't know, do you work with Andrea Miller? Do you know Andrea Miller?
I know Andrea very well. We are part of a group. We're on calls twice a week. We're on calls, and she's been one of the great partners, particularly from Virginia, but also in the Black vote in the whole South.
Well, we're going to have the two of you on together with Frances Piven and then the place will really explode. So put your website in there. Tell us exactly what you're doing for the 2026 election, please.
Well, what I'm doing is I'm the national outreach director for a group called Battleground Alliance. And it's an effort now with 120 organizations. PDA is one of the fine members of it. Our executive committee are the service employees, CWA, Painters Union, Popular Democracy, and Working Families. But they're really well over 100 organizations that are in it. And we focused on about 40 marginal congressional districts and building deep operations to both hold those deceitful current elected officials accountable. And while we're independent of any campaign or political party, but we are working to ensure that there is a popular agenda, a people's agenda that is enforced. And right now, most people are just they're trying to figure out how to live, how to move on. And our healthcare is being taken away in order to fund armies that are killing people in the streets, terrorizing us, and now going to an unwanted war, totally unpopular. And we're saying the people's voice still can be heard. And when we organize, we will change this world. I have more to give people's confidence about the election if there's time
Yeah.
Harvey, I can do a
Well,
short.
listen, I wanted to make sure you got to know Mayor Hedy, who's right next to you on my screen, was elected mayor of a town called Waldport, Oregon, on the coast. And the right-wing city council banded together to throw her out and have her arrested, for God's sakes. So she's been on with us for months. And Heather, you and Hedy really need to connect because
Yeah.
Hedy is in the middle of a war there with the MAGA right wing, and she's literally the elected mayor of this town.
And it's a information war, which I'm sure you're very familiar with. It's mostly happening over Facebook and in the small cafes of where people are inundated with so many facts and opinions that nobody knows what's real and what isn't. But what's unique in my situation is I was reinstated as mayor, but they are trying to recall me. And then the other half of my community, which is only 2,000 people, is trying to recall the other 6 counselors. So what will probably happen in May or June is we're going to end up with an entirely recalled council, which has never happened in the history of Oregon. And I really wanted to share this with you, Heather, because this is about communities who can't work together. We don't know how to work together anymore. And it's so sad to me that we can have differences and it still be a battleground. So I'm totally I'm very intrigued with everything that you're doing. I want to learn more. I signed up, of course, to be a subscriber and get your newsletters because we need your intelligence and wisdom here because we need it more than ever to teach each other how we are all the same people of the same team of the same democratic system that isn't getting served right now. We're actually getting denied. So anyways, thank you so much for being here today. And it's been such a pleasure to get to talk to you. And I look forward to hearing about what you're doing to empower the next election. Because I'm one of those folks that have been losing hope in our system. And I really want to help fortify it as much as I can.
So Mayor Hedy is the mayor of this town, Heather, in
Mayor
Central Oregon.
Hedy, you're standing up. People who act with courage, in part, inspire others. And all of us need to be agents of hope now. And there actually is so much to be hopeful for. We know that often at the moments of greatest challenge, often comes the greatest progress.
Right.
People stand up and fight and join together, as they're doing in Minnesota, as you're doing in Oregon, as Harvey's doing every day, as Francis Fox Piven has taught us how to do for years and years.
Really.
And people are coming together. And at some point, the will of the people overcomes the authoritarian dictators when we organize.
You're great. And I want to introduce you to another legendary activist, Susie Shannon. Susie has been, Susie's here in LA, and she's been at the vanguard of the struggle on homelessness. Susie, are you there? Can you connect up?
I'm here. Yeah,
Yes.
I'm here. I should
Heather,
also,
Susie has an incredible career. She is a great, great organizer. Susie, do you want to hook up with Heather, please? And then we'll come back to you, Heather.
okay, sure. Well, first of all, I want to say I was also in Chicago in 1968. I was in my crib, I think just 1 year old. And I thank you and your generation for fighting in the streets in Chicago and for ending the draft for my generation as well. That has not gone unnoticed by us. And my former boss was Tom Hayden, and I was very thankful to him and for all the work that he did around anti-Vietnam War and the anti-draft and a lot of other stuff you guys were really responsible for. And the anti-nuclear movement, which it seems we need more education on for both my generation and younger generations now. So I do want to thank you for that. But yeah, I'm interested in hearing about what Heather has to say for the upcoming elections. I'm also a DNC member in the interest of full disclosure and the chair of the DNC Poverty Council. I know there's going to be a lot of organizing coming out of the DNC, which is a lot of new programs that are coming out. But again, it's all about very much what Heather was saying, which is these neighbor to neighbor programs, peer to peer programs. They're all very important. I'm working on, lower income communities and making sure that people understand that, when they vote Republican or they stay home and don't vote, it actually has real consequences, as we're seeing now. Right now, we're faced with a work requirement that's coming down from OMB, and there's going to have to be a lot of organizing around that to stop it, or a lot of low-income people are going to lose their Section 8 housing. And it's just, we just keep getting hit everywhere. And when these programs get hit, it's usually one family gets hit multiple times, which is, we kind of silo a lot of the conversation around these cuts. But really, if you get hit with healthcare, SNAP benefits, Section 8 housing, that's usually one family getting hit multiple times with those cuts.
Okay.
So, and I think, a lot of this conversation has become quote unquote affordability because no one wants to say low income or poverty. And we do know that, people in the middle class and upper middle class also are suffering a bit with rising gas prices and grocery prices. But I will tell you, no one's getting hit more than people who are low income. And we have to make sure we're not overlooking them in the 2026 election.
Great. So Heather, you and Susie also should connect. Susie's a fabulous organizer. We've got 93 people with us. So Heather, tell us now. Give us the
Susie,
bottom line here.
Susie,
We do have these.
Susie,
Sorry?
I think we connected through Tom Hayden at different points. We were
Yes.
very close friends. My husband who died was the National Secretary of SGS, and so was at Port Huron with Tom and Paul Booth, and they were part.
I can't tell you. Tom Hayden was the editor of the Michigan Daily, which I became later editorial director. And I can't tell you how much I miss Tom Hayden. So in his spirit now, with our 96 people here, Heather, tell us, well, we have this big No Kings March coming on, which we're calling No Kings, No Nukes, because it's on the anniversary of the 3 Mile Island accident. That'll be March 28th. I don't know if you're plugged into that, but Heather, the floor is yours. What can you tell us now? Take us where you want us to go.
Well, there's so many ways to go, and I see also there are hands that are raised. People want to talk. So I'll just touch on a couple of different points. First of all, there is a massive No Kings demonstration that is happening on March 28th. There are now over 2,000 events that have been identified.
Wow.
And there's another 800, I was told, that are waiting to be vetted because they want to make sure that each event is secure and safe, and also will be engaging of people's efforts. I'm looking for.
Well, we're now calling it, in our little corner, we're calling it No Kings, No Nukes, because it is the anniversary of 3 Mile Island.
Yeah, and Harvey, that is great, and those demonstrations should go forward and go No Kings, No Nukes. But there are many different groups that are coming with their own perspective and making it their own view and theme and thrust of it, because it's for everyone. That's why it's called No Kings.
Right.
No Kings. In DC, where I live, there are at least 2 that have been identified. One is in one of the poorest and predominantly Black areas of the city, and that will emphasize those issues that have been particularly around those parts of the city. And also, they're focusing on issues of ICE in the city and the National Guard in the city. And we're not quite at the Minneapolis level, but people are being picked up who are working every day. They're Uber Eats drivers who are on a moped. They go in to get the food because they're working so hard. They come out, their moped has been picked up, put into one van, they're put into another van. I've been told that there are 70,000 people around the country who've been put in these, it's really concentration style camps to, not extermination, but concentration camps, waiting for deportation. And
the extermination camp is in El Salvador. That's what the Nazis did. The Nazis had thousands of
CCOT.
concentration camps, but the death camps, all 6 of them, were in Poland. So our death camp is now in El Salvador.
So, Harvey, all I'm saying is that the theme of each demonstration may be a little different. That's one
Yes, yes.
demonstration. There's another one that's going to march across a bridge to where Trump wants to build a Trump big golden arch
God.
between
Jeez.
Virginia and Washington, D.C. So there'll be different approaches in different places, but you're all welcome. The one thing that I would say is that in addition to the extraordinary power that we will feel on that day, and joy, and make your signs, bring your noisemakers, bring your whistles, but then we also have to move from protest to power. And it's not about us showing up on one day for one demonstration. It's about the ongoing work. And so in many areas, we are going to encourage people to move and connect with the organizations that are on the ground, like many of your organizations, PDA, that you're there, Indivisible chapters. And tonight, there is a call that's being sponsored by Indivisible, Move On, 5051, and I just saw Working Families was also sponsoring it. If you go to any of those websites, or you may have received an email already, there's a call that's been prepared tonight, both to build into No Kings, but also to tie into this outrageous, illegal, unjustifiable war that was created by this authoritarian dictator of a leader that we have, saying that he's going to do regime change, and really he got rid of a despicable and brutal leader in Khomeini in Iran. There's no reason to believe that this leads to regime change or any of the outcomes that he proposed, and it will in fact kill people, risk lives. They're already, on the US side, there are at least 4.
6. Now 6.
6, now 6, and the numbers will increase. This, you go into a war and you say, oh, it'll be easy, a walk in the park, and then.
Yeah, they always say that. They always say that.
So that.
Mike Hirsch and I, Mike, thank you for bringing Heather. Mike Hirsch and I were discussing earlier today about whether the No Kings, No Nukes marches could segue into a general strike.
Well, there are also efforts around that. There's the May Day efforts of a group called May Day Strong that was initiated by the UAW, Chicago Teachers Union, and many others, with, I think, over 100 organizations supporting that. And on May 1st, there is a discussion of what actions will happen then. And one of the things that our group, Battleground Alliance, is doing, because our move is from protest to power, is that whatever happens on May 1st, May 2nd, we are going to have canvas operations in these 40 battleground districts. And through your own organization, or if you're not in an organization, you can come and join us centrally. And we will have canvas operations, meeting people at the door. We'll train you how to have a conversation, to listen to people, to hear their stories, and then to find ways to come together. Because the power of the people is greater than the power of the king, but we need to come together ourselves. Just, Harvey, to give people confidence, right now, people, I think, know that Trump's approval ratings are dismal. They're at 36%, only 36% of the country. Now you'd say, why is it even 36? But there are some who, they're either profiting from it or they believed his garbage and his lies. But only 36% believe that he's moving in the direction they wanted. That is worse than other presidents where there has been a wave response in a midterm election when a president is at that low in a percentage of popularity. There's over 20% of Republican voters, non-MAGA Republican voters, who regret their vote. So even they say, this isn't what I voted for. I voted for lower healthcare prices. And what I'm getting is those billions of dollars are being used to invade another country. That's not what I voted for.
No,
And
it's
so,
amazing. Well, we have 102 people with you, Heather.
so we can build up, and then, there are others and concerned about the Epstein files and housing and healthcare and many of the issues that have been raised. But we shouldn't take it for granted. Sort of just leave with these two last messages, Harvey. We shouldn't take it for granted. First of all, the Republicans have an enormous financial advantage. They have people who've made their money out of AI and just enormous billions and billions of dollars. It's changed the scope of elections. So they have a financial advantage. They also have, they're using threats. And one of the questions in the chat was saying, what happens if they have people at polling places to frighten people that they can't even vote, that they'll be picked up? There are young people who are frightened about, what do I need in order to vote? Apparently 20% of young people from ages 18 to 25 said a major reason they didn't vote is they didn't know what you needed in order to vote, as we're trying to get more voter ID going forth. And so, and then there's, the threats of actually stealing election files. So it is up to all of us. It is up to us for what we do. And I would say this is my last comment, and then I'm probably going to go off, Harvey. And that is, when I was in the civil rights movement.
Well, make sure before you leave, Heather, that we know how to get in touch with you. We want you to come back. I'd love to have you on with Andrea Miller together. That would be spectacular.
I love Andrea. I'm on a call with her, by the way, twice a week. We love each other dearly. Mike knows how to get in touch with me. And
conspire with Andrea and tell her that we want the two of you on together. Okay.
We'll figure out a time. And Mike knows how to get in touch with me, and I'm in touch with PDA. I so appreciate the work you all do. But here's what I wanted to leave you with, just as a thought. When I was in the civil rights movement, I was in the Mississippi Freedom Summer Project. People probably, many know about that, where Northern students were recruited to support very courageous African Americans who were struggling for the right to vote and to live with dignity. And the summer gained notoriety when 3 of the young volunteers, Andrew Goodman, James Chaney, and Michael Schwerner, were killed at the hands of the Klan. But within a year, we won a Voting Rights Act that was the law of the land for 50 years. And now there's a pushback on it, but the struggle is worth it. And when we organize with love at the center, that's when we make change. That's what you all do every day. Thank you for what you've done. Thank you for what you'll do. Thank you for what we're doing together. I appreciate you having me on.
Well, Heather, you're going to have, the price of your coming on is you have to come back. So we'll have you and Andrea on together. We want to talk about strategizing for 2026. These calls began as election protection calls. And we were in Columbus in 2004. We've seen stolen elections. We've had tremendous discussions on what it will take to protect an election. And if ever election called out to be protected, it's 2026. So we're going to have to get deep into the weeds on that one. And we have here a mayor who's been arrested, for God's sakes, and a homeless activist who's been on it forever. So Heather, make sure we have Mike has your connections. Do you have time for a question or two, or do you got to run?
If you got to run I'm responding to one of the questions, and I responded to some other questions in the mail. Why don't we do like 5 minutes? But
Okay, 5 minutes. Carla Sand, I know, is in Minneapolis or Minnesota, and then we'll get Mike Hirsch and Myla Reason and Lynn Segal. Then we'll let you go. But you got to come back, Heather. It's great to see you. And we'll talk about that window you got pushed through. Alyssa's on the call. She was standing next to me in '68, so maybe we were right there. Carla Sand, go ahead, please.
Yes, this is Carla Sam from Minnesota, and I just want to respond to Heather. First of all, Minnesota, I think, has the highest voting turnout of any state in the union, and I think you all know that. But also, I was thank her for saying Minneapolis is the word, but I'm also terribly offended by the fact that she thinks She's forgotten that Minnesota has been blue long before blue was popular. We were back there in '68 with McCarthy. We voted for McGovern when he got 2 votes or something. So I don't like it. It's like Minnesota all of a sudden came out from underneath the rock. And that's not true.
Well, listen.
We've been around for a long time doing good work. So thank you.
Well, I have. Thank you,
I
Carla. You're 100% right. I was in Minnesota in '94 with Greenpeace to fight their nuclear plants, and I was there in the winter. I got to tell you, in the winter in Minnesota, I turned blue. So that's how it goes up there.
And also, but one other thing, Minnesota has as Carla must know, Minnesota has amongst the most progressive legislation that they've been able to pass because they did on the ground organizing year after year after year, not just one cycle, but year after year.
Yes.
And in fact, the reason that Trump is going after Minnesota and Minneapolis in particular is because they are blue, because they are so effective, because they have been so progressive. And then just to tell you, Carla, I'm actually helping to sponsor a fundraiser for Keith Ellison, who's the Attorney General in Minnesota, who not only prosecuted the murderer of George Floyd, but also is playing a role in the defense around the good and pretty murders that went on now. And so thank you, Carla, for emphasizing that. If I didn't make it clear, it was my problem because I am so right. You are so right.
Carla, Keith has been on the call. Keith was actually a student of Bob Fitrakis, one of the founders of the call at Columbus State. That's a whole other story. Mike Hirsch, you brought Heather on. Please jump in.
Well, I just wanted to say thank you so much, Heather, for spending extra time with us. I was going to give you an introduction for anybody who isn't aware of all the wonderful things that you've done, but I'm sure that people can tell just by your presentation how amazing and wonderful you are, and just what an incredible inspirational leader you are, and also how modest you are. And also I wanted to mention that Mayor Hedy and Susie Shannon are both also extremely modest. Mayor Hedy, besides being a mayor, has made a career out of counseling and helping people, uplifting people. Susie Shannon basically took the idea of poverty and the housing crisis on her back and created a poverty council within the Democratic Party without any support from most of the insiders. I don't want to say that she did it all completely on her own, but she was terrific, courageous, and we've had her over on our Zoom a few times. But it seems to me that these wonderful, incredible, inspiring, accomplished women are just so modest. And if they're not going to sing their praises, I'm going to have to sing their praises and say, when the men get to talking, the women roll up their sleeves and get things done, and the smart men follow along. So I just want to thank you, all three of you, from the bottom of my heart. And also I want to throw in Mila Reason, who's been an incredibly courageous organizer for quite a while, and just will not be intimidated by anybody, will not take no for an answer. These women are leading the way. And as long as we have wonderful people like this, and then also the young person who came and told us about what's going on in Minnesota and what he himself is doing, as long as we have wise people who have experience to pass along to this next energized generation that has been in the streets and fighting for the rights and working to clean up the mess that some of us older people have made, I know my heart will be lighter, and I will be more optimistic even in these dark times. So thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for all you do.
And let me just
thank you, Mike. Thank you all.
And Mike, I'm 80, so I consider you young. But Heather, you've got to come back with Andrea, and we're going to go into the deep dive on exactly what we have to do to protect the 26th election.
All the best to you.
We will do that. Heather, thank you for coming. We appreciate it. Mike, thank you for getting her. Mila Reason, did you want to jump in? Lynn Segal, Ruth and we want to say hi to Frances Piven, if you want to say anything, and then Susie Shannon will go back to you. And then we're going to turn to this war, and we're going to deal with, but we also want to deal with the media, because that's what's really also going on, and people are not paying attention. But go ahead. Mila, go ahead, please.
Very quickly, you asked me to let you know when our dear friend and No Nukes champion, Ace Hoffman, was with us on the call. Ace is with us today, and he's been here many times in the past, so I wanted to let you know that he's here. And Diane Dorigo, speaking of wonderful women who have been doing so much in the No Nukes cause, Diane Dorigo is also with us.
We're actually going to get to Ace and Diane, if you'll stick with us. We're going to have Roger Rapoport come on in a little bit. Roger has a hugely important article published today in the Detroit Free Press, which is one of the two big newspapers in Michigan, about Palisades. So we're going to come back to that. Both of you, please stay with us. It's incredibly important.
Okay, that's it for me.
Well, Myla, thank you. Stay with us, and thank you for having our No Nukes, No Kings logo in the background. That's great to hear. So this one of the questions we're going to ask at the end of the next hour is really what's going to happen on March 28th. That's a very big deal. Let's be respectful to people. Lynn Segal and then Ruth Strauss. Lynn, go ahead. We still have
You
101
don't want
people with us.
video on?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, please.
You don't want my video on? You don't want to see me?
Yeah, well, you can have your video on. Go ahead.
Well, no, we're just going to go with the audio for
Able
now,
to
but
start.
thanks. Go ahead.
It says unable to start video.
Don't worry about the video. Just please
Yeah, go ahead. It's better reception without the video. So go ahead, please.
Why wasn't he impeached years ago? I mean, but not even for the first administration. And this means Project 2025. Like, I don't understand. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. I think the Democrats, as well as the Republicans, voted Trump in because it's been complicity. I'll vote for Ralph Nader, but I want reparations, I want convictions, and I want impeachment yesterday. And I just haven't seen that out in the public. Just sounds very.
Well, I think there's going to be a vote in the Congress tomorrow about the war. And that will be very interesting. We'll see how many members of the House on the Republican side go against Trump on the war. And if enough go against him, impeachment could be next. And a lot of people now are talking about the 25th Amendment. This guy is not all there. And, there's one reason for this attack, and that's the Epstein files. They're inches away, I believe, from releasing stuff that will absolutely destroy him. And I think that's why he attacked Iran. But we'll get to that. But thank you for that. Impeachment, I think the House could vote to impeach. I don't know that we can get a conviction out of the Senate, but I think we may be very close to enough votes in the House to impeach him. But let's see how this vote on the war goes tomorrow. Ruth Strauss, thank you for that, by the way. Ruth Strauss, I'm trying to unmute you here. Can we unmute Ruth?
Oh, thank you. I had actually had my hand up for Heather, but now that you've changed to
All right,
this,
go ahead. What do you got?
well, talking about dementia, I mean, do you remember back about his talking about the sharks in the water and the outboard motors or whatever that was? I mean, this goes back a ways. But anyway, anybody who's, thinking that his health is in trouble, very unfortunately, it's not. The bruises on the back of his hand are nothing to, think that that's or even the swelling in the legs. He's not in congestive heart failure, so that's out.
Well, but just to clarify, everybody, Ruth is a doctor. She is a heart specialist, so she would know. And you have not been at the White House personally lately to examine Donald Trump, but I think you're
right. It's breaking the Eisenhower rule or whatever from when what's his name ran Goldwater. Anyway, the other thing I wanted to say is yes, I don't know that they'll impeach him, but they should. And I agree with you about the Epstein files, totally that's a cover up, but also I'm sure you know this, and I'm sure everybody on this call does. But the other thing is he can declare a, quasi national emergency and then, send federal troops into election places for the primaries and all of that. So that's another consideration. Thanks.
Well, going forward now, it's March, so we have what do we have? 8 months to the election, and we are going to discuss in great depth with Heather and with Andrea Miller and all the other experts that we have. And remember, these calls began as election protection calls. So by the time November comes around and early voting in October, we need to have a very, very clear and powerful game plan for protecting these elections. I mean, Steve Bannon is very clear. He wants ICE agents at every polling place. Trump does not want vote by mail. They're talking about voter ID that will disenfranchise millions and millions of women, among many others. And so these are things that we're going to go into in the coming months in deep, deep detail so we know what's going on and can protect this election. Mike Hurst, please.
I just wanted to say that we're joined by an incredible candidate for Congress, and this is a nonpartisan, nonprofit project, but we will welcome candidates for Congress to come and speak to us, Democrat, Republican, Independent. But we have Hartzell Gray, just an incredible, inspiring, wonderful progressive candidate for Congress from the Kansas City, Missouri area. Hartzell, can you turn on your
Yeah,
video?
if you'll give us a minute,
unmute?
Hartzell, and then we have Ray Lutz, who's a great election protection expert, as well as a nuclear guy. And then we're going to talk about the media, what's happening with the media, and then we're going to go to the nuclear issue and the incredible breakthrough of Roger Rapoport's article being up in the major newspaper in Detroit. But go ahead, Hartzell, give us a minute, please.
Yeah, it's so good to see everybody. Everyone is just this brings my heart so much joy, especially in a time where things were just such madness. And I forgot who it was who mentioned this on the call, but you made such a great point that where is the fight from the Democratic Party, our supposed opposition party? We may not have the votes to convict, but we should absolutely be having a carousel of all the Democrats introducing articles of impeachment every single day to every single member of this corrupt administration. And I'm so happy I was able to hop on before the media portion of the call. I'm a former NPR host, and I'm an
Well,
independent
stay with us.
journalist. Still,
Jeff Cohen from Fairness and Accuracy in Reporting has just joined us. So stay with us
oh,
for the media
fantastic!
discussion.
Oh yeah, I'm not going nowhere. This is the place to be this evening. But
Okay.
and to see how the media has taken the side of the war hawks, which is of course everything that we've already expected. But I am encouraged because the American people are just fed up. We don't want to pay for this. We don't want to participate, and we have too many folks who on our supposed Democratic Party who are upset that they didn't get a chance to sign off on this. They want to make it a process argument, not an argument that's actually for peace. I'm a peace candidate. Peace through strength is an oxymoron, and peace through peace is how we do this. And so I'm just so encouraged that we have all these folks and allies here on the call. But this is, the urgency of now that MLK talked about. It is now. Hakeem Jeffries takes money from Palantir. Palantir makes money off of dead Iranians, dead Americans, dead Palestinians. Palantir also was put together by Peter Thiel, who installed J.D. Vance. And as I'm reading reports just a few minutes ago, it seems to be that J.D. Vance was the person who pushed this over the finish line for the president, is what I'm reading right now. So our minority leader is taking money from the same folks that just, murdered or just benefited off of murdering children because of strikes. And so we need to get folks in there who are champions for peace, like our people here at PDA, like our folks here on this call who want to protect our elections, because you're right, the president wants to steal this one. He wants to send ICE agents to every polling place, and we have to make sure that our folks are protected, that they feel safe to vote and that they can vote. And if this happens, if this is on the plan, in the plan, then we need to also plan.
Okay.
And I love the idea of a general strike. We have to start making ways that we can shut this down as working class folks.
Well,
We can't stop this.
we got no choice, and thank you for that, Hartzell. Very well spoken. I want to go to Ray Lutz, and then we got Jeff Cohen and Ken Wachsberger, who have joined us for our media discussion. Ken, Ray, go ahead. We want get. We
I'll tell
need
you something.
we need
What
an
I
outline. You're a great expert on this, and we need an outline going forward on protecting the 26th election.
That's one thing that we're trying to do right now is to defend ourselves against an FBI type of raid like we saw at Fulton County of the next election. I can't think we can put anything past what Trump might do, including confiscating the ballots from any of the areas and trying to just claim whatever he wants to claim, that his folks won, and then burning the ballots somewhere else and saying they weren't there. So we're going to be sending this out to all of the states, the Secretary of States, and that is for them to make incremental backups of all of the data that they're generating as they're doing the election, not just at the end. Every single day that they get some data, it needs to be backed up, not just there, but off-site in at least 2 places, so that if the FBI comes in, they can defend themselves against turning everything over, and then we have a bit of a chance if everything else fails. And I love all these ideas of let's impeach him and so forth, but that doesn't seem to ever work. And I think we're going to be up against a real hard fight. Okay,
well,
thanks.
we can impeach him. I'm sure there will be at some point the votes to impeach him, but not
maybe it'll happen. But the impeachments don't seem to work.
Well, the impeachments work. The removals don't work. That's the point. It happened right after the Civil War. They impeached Andrew Johnson, who was a horrible guy, by the way, but they didn't remove him. And But the strategy now, and you're one of the great experts on this, is to come up with a blueprint, a game plan to protect the election. We have a pretty good idea what they're going to throw at us. They're going to throw ICE at the polls, voter ID, all these other things that we've seen before in Ohio, 2004, and wherever else. And we need to figure out. We forewarned is forearmed. It's March. We got till maybe September to put a serious game plan in place so that we have an election that's reasonably fair, and that Steve Bannon can't walk away with. And you're going to be a part of that. So we need.
Yeah. Okay. So definitely part of it. And there's a lot more to say, but let's let other people talk today. I just wanted to give you that one heads up about this one project, which I think has a lot of credibility. In other words, it'll give us a last chance to stop some sort of a takeover like what Maduro did in Venezuela, where he just claimed that he won, and he was far from a winner.
Right. We know what's going to come at us. We got a pretty good idea what's going to come at us.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Ray, and keep staying with us, please. We appreciate it. Lynn Segal, did you want to say something else? And then I want to go to Jeff Cohen and Ken Wachsberger and jump into our discussion of what happened with the media. Because Saturday, not only did we attack Iran, but Trump basically took over CNN. And that's a terrifying sentence. One of the most terrifying sentences I've ever said, actually. Lynn Segal, did you want to say something? We're going to go to Jeff Cohen and Ken Wachsberger.
Think that we can make it to the midterm elections. I don't think so. Not without throwing him the heck out. A revolution. I mean, a major revolution. Or we're having World War III, and we're not going to be around to see any more elections. Just saying.
Well, okay.
That's the facts of the matter. And I'm clear as day. This guy is complete nuts.
Okay. You got it. Thank you, Lynn. Thank you. We appreciate that. Okay, now I want to move. It's 3:04 in California, and we have another hour. And as I say, I want to talk about the media. We got a couple great experts. Ken Wachsberger is talking to us from Ann Arbor, and Jeff Cohen who's talking to us from LA, are two separate parts here. Ken Wachsberger, and I'm going to come to you second, Ken, if you can. I want to start with Jeff. Ken Wachsberger knows more probably about the alternative media, the underground press of the 1960s than anybody. He's put out a number of books about it. He was involved in it, and he's got a new book out. And we're going to have to look at alternative media going forward and what kind of shape it's going to take in the coming year, because we're down to it. I mean, the bottom line is that Paramount, which is controlled by the Ellisons, who are close friends of Donald Trump to the extent that anybody can be a close friend of Donald Trump's. It's like being a close friend of Stalin. You're much better off being an enemy than a close friend. But nonetheless, they on Saturday apparently completed a deal, or a certain stage of a deal, to buy Warner. And Warner owns CNN. So, and this guy, Ellison, David Ellison, and his father, what the hell is his first name? I forget his first name. Larry Ellison, who had Oracle, and his son David have almost as much money as God. They may have more than Elon Musk, actually, but they bought Warner, which owns CNN, and they already own CBS. So you've got the two Trump cohorts who own CBS and CNN. God help us. So Jeff Cohen, you're from Fairness and Accuracy in Reporting. You've been a media guy forever. If you want to turn on your camera, we'll take a look at you. I know you're in LA. What do you got to tell us about this? And Dave Saltman, if you're with us, Dave Saltman, also join us, please. Go ahead.
Look, I've been tracking the media industry since the mid-'80s. It's never been more dire than today. I remember in the 90s when Time merged with Warner, we were astounded that they would allow such a huge media merger, a concentration of opinion shaping power in the hands of that one company. And then Time Warner took over, Turner Broadcasting, CNN. Well, now we're like in the stratosphere. We're talking about Paramount, as you pointed out. They took over CBS after getting executives from CBS News to resign in protest from all the meddling. Then a $16 million bribe was paid to Trump by Paramount in the form of a settlement of a lawsuit they couldn't have lost. Then they terminated Colbert, and that facilitated the merger of Paramount and Paramount Skydance. That's the Ellisons. So now Paramount Skydance is in the process of trying to acquire, we shouldn't say it's a done deal, trying to acquire Warner Brothers Discovery, which owns not only CNN, it also owns HBO, which has the greatest investigative journalist comedian on TV, John Oliver, every week. His job would be in jeopardy. Larry Ellison from Oracle, who's the money behind Paramount Skydance, he's already had discussions with a top aide at the White House about which CNN anchors will be fired after Paramount Skydance acquires Warner. The good news is we can still try to block this merger. And one of the key people for all of your California listeners, viewers, the Attorney General of California is Rob Bonta, B-O-N-T-A. If you go to the homepage of extension.org, near the top, you will see that we are sending emails to Rob Bonta asking him to intervene and block this merger. There's the Clayton Antitrust Act that was passed back in 1914, and it empowers state attorneys general to intervene and block mergers. He could file an injunction. He could seek an injunction. So if you're interested in trying to obstruct this thing, go to the homepage of rootsaction.org. Very near the top, you'll be able to click on something that will send an email to the Attorney General of California, because he has the power to block this thing.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's a great article that we're linking to that was written by the wonderful journalist David Dayan of
Oh
American
yeah.
Prospect. And the headline was, "The states can block this merger." And so I started reading up on the Clayton Antitrust Act, and it allows states to intervene. And Rob Bonta, by the way, is already on the record saying he's going to scrutinize this merger. And then, you have Senator Chris Murphy from Connecticut, a Democrat, and these guys always sound better than, when they're candidates. He's obviously running for president, seeking the Democratic nomination in 2028. But Chris Murphy has a wonderful quote that he put on X. He said, "Paramount should enjoy its growing news monopoly while they have it, because when Democrats win back power, we are going to break up these anti-democratic information conglomerates," unquote. I mean, clearly we needed to break up media conglomerates years ago. And the Democrats, when Obama was in power, they always said good things when they were candidates. They never did good things when they were in office. I'll give credit to Joe Biden's administration. They successfully blocked another media merger, and that's when Penguin Random House was trying to take over Simon and Schuster, and it was broken up in 2022. So there is precedent. These things can be stopped, but they have to be stopped soon. And that's why we're asking people to communicate, if they're Californians, or even if not, with the Attorney General of California, Rob Bonta, who's not a bad guy. He's done some good things as Attorney General.
Are the Ellisons now in charge of CNN?
No, not yet. But as I said, Larry Ellison, who's put up the money, they're also going to go deeply in debt, which is why they're going to have a debt of what? Just a monstrous
Billions.
debt
Yeah.
that's going to cause layoffs to happen. But no, Larry Ellison has already talked to a top aide, maybe it was Steve Miller, I'm not sure who it was, talking about which CNN anchors would be fired after this merger goes through, and Paramount Skydance is running CNN. And they've talked about getting rid of Aaron Burnett and getting rid of Brianna Keeler.
And I'm sure Wolf Blitzer will go too, right?
Possibly. I'm not sure who would go. I mean, the one thing that drives a lot of the politics of the Ellisons is they're sort of Israel right or wrong freaks. So that's one of the reasons that Larry Ellison, after that squabble between Trump and Elon Musk, it was reported in the media that the billionaire who's closest to Trump is Larry Ellison, the co-founder of Oracle. He's 81 years old, and it's his money that's behind this. Now, he's a fanatical Israel right or wrong guy. And that's why they've installed, when they took over CBS, they installed Barry Weiss as the head of CBS News. And a number of people have resigned, and they've had to quit in protest because of what Barry Weiss is doing, making CBS News more Trump friendly. That will happen at CNN if they are allowed to take it over. But right now, no, the Ellisons do not run CNN yet.
Oh my God, it's terrifying. We have Dave Saltman and then Ken Wachsberger. Dave Saltman is a veteran of almost all these networks. Dave, and you and I have been talking about what a mess CBS has become under Barry Weiss. I will say one thing. Here in LA, I read the LA Times last night, and they're all talking about, oh, this is a dumb move. Financially, it's going to fail. All these mergers don't make sense economically. This isn't about economics. This is about political control. These guys don't care how much money they lose on this. They just want to get, as you say, he's pro-Israel. They want to support Trump. They want to get rid of all these annoying moderate liberals, that they don't care about the money in the long run. Is that right, Jeff?
I think you're exactly right. I mean, they're so rich that,
Right.
Larry Ellison is so wealthy that, yes, of course he can take a loss if it furthers his ideology. And he's so close to Trump, maybe he can make some more money back elsewhere. But yeah, the key thing here is they want to take over CNN and do to it what they're doing to CBS.
Right. Dave Saltman, you've been in all these boardrooms.
I know them all. I know them all well. I was amazed to read on the front page of the Washington Post yesterday. By the way, since the Washington Post has turned out to be a disaster area, they've been doing some really good reporting on it. It's weird. Anyway, the headline was, and this won't mean anything to anyone except real insiders, and especially Washington insiders. It said with big giant open eyes, Mary Walsh leaving CBS News. Mary Walsh has been the backbone of CBS Washington Bureau for 49 years. She's been working there at that bureau for 49 years. She's the institutional memory of CBS News. She goes before Walter Cronkite, Anyway, that made the headline. Everybody in Washington knows her. That made the headlines. So I was amazed by that. And I was amazed to read one other thing today, apropos of the Tehran situation. There's a connection. Listen to this. When Kermit Roosevelt Jr. was the lead officer of the CIA in 1951, in charge of the overthrow of Mossadegh, the government, that coup was accomplished with not a shot fired. You know how? They announced it on Tehran radio. And that's all it took. Everybody believed it. Nobody questioned it. And the deed was done.
Well,
now let me just say one other thing. Jeff, by the way, I've never met you, but I have a lot of respect for your work. And I would just disagree with one thing. You guys, you haven't been in the networks working there, at least lately. These things are money machines. The networks, they do nothing but generate giant amounts of cash. Do you want to know something? People don't know this, and I'm probably going to be put in prison for telling this. CBS used to have a bank on the ground and in the basement where you could just go in, and whom nobody was, I was just one of 18 million producers for CBS News. On my signature alone, I could take out $100,000 cash, just like that. I was in charge of the when we were hunting for Dr. Mengele in Brazil. I was in charge of a big CBS, about 100 people. We took over an entire hotel, and there was one guy who in my operation whose job it was to fly every day from Miami to Sao Paulo just to see me, and his job was to bring me a suitcase full of cash in case I needed to bribe somebody or hire a helicopter.
Did he stop off? Did he stop off at the White House to pay off Richard Nixon? Anyway, look. So here we are now. What we have to have now is a way. Just like we got to prepare for the 26th election. We got to prepare to have all these media operations owned by the billionaires, right? We've watched the Washington Post, the LA Times, Facebook, Twitter, they're all gone. And CNN is about to go, or maybe not, but it's only a matter of time. So in the 1960s, as we recall, we had a similar situation at the war in Vietnam. We couldn't get any coverage. And out pops the alternative media. Now we have Ken Wachsberger with us. Ken is in Ann Arbor, and he is the expert on the underground press of the and the alternative media of the 1960s. of which Liberation News Service was a major player. So the question now, I don't know if you can join us, I know you're in a Panera, and Roger Rapoport, who was editor of the University of Michigan Daily, where me and Saltman and Roger were in Ann Arbor together. We had an alternative view. We made a difference. Ken, do you have any feeling for what we can do to prepare to be completely blacked out of CNN, CBS, all these places? What kind of media can we come up with that's an alternative?
Can you hear me?
Yes, go for it.
Okay, good. Well, what I see, back when we had the underground press, it was very exciting. I still get nostalgic for it. And but in the real world, we're not going to go back to a whole movement of print publications. It's not going to happen. But we've got the blogs right now. A lot of blogs out there. A lot of blogs are good. When I was editing my Voices from the Underground, which is a collection of histories of different underground papers as written by key people on each one of the papers, including Harvey wrote for Liberation News Service. But one thing I wanted to do, I know that the bloggers of today, as I see it, are the heirs to the underground press, but they don't know that.
Well, they do now. You just told us. So there we go.
Well, okay, thank you. But no, they had no idea. And so I contacted Marcos Mulitsas, I think that's how you pronounce his name, who's the founder of Daily Kos. And I said to him, I'd like him to write the foreword to one of my volumes, the 4-volume set. I wanted him to write the foreword to one of them. He said, Ken, I'd love to, but I got to be honest, I don't know anything about the underground press. And I said, I know that, Marcos. That's why I invited you. And what I did was I sent him a couple chapters and he read them and he got very excited. He was so excited to learn about it.
We'll put the link to your volumes on the underground press. And here's the question. Everybody should know about this. You're 100% right. Here's the question. We had a tremendous impact in the 1960s and 1970s. The underground press really made a difference. We published Cy Hirsch's stuff at Liberation News Service. We were able to give an alternative voice of significant reach and power. Now the question is, can today's blogs, can today's independent, Dave keeps pushing me to get on with Joe Rogan. Where did Joe Rogan come from? How does a guy sitting in a studio sit around and talk to millions of people? These bloggers, they have impact. Jeff Cohen and then Dave Saltman.
Yeah, let me start.
It's great to have you with that.
Yeah, let me start on this. It's not just bloggers, it's podcasts, it's websites.
I meant to say podcasters also.
Yeah. The independent media today is very, very powerful. In the 60s and 70s, the alternative weeklies were good, used a lot of 4-letter words, but they only reached people once a week. You can get non-corporate or anti-corporate news now, thanks to these podcasts and blogs and websites every hour. So if you put together things like Democracy Now!, Drop Site News, Zeteo, The Intercept, the biggest blogger on the left, who's equivalent, is sort of like the Joe Rogan of the left, but he's much sharper, smarter, is Hassan Piker. You put together all of these people, millions of people today, because of these platforms, are getting anti-corporate or non-corporate news, anti-militarist or non-militarist news, hour after hour after hour. That's why we have to defend Pacifica Radio, defend what we have so far, and try to expand it. Of course, these independent news outlets don't have advertising budgets. So those activists that are on this call, you are their marketing department. You are their advertising department. You have to fund these outlets. You have to spread the word about them through your own social media and through email. And we have to understand how powerful we are now. Can we compete with CNN or CBS? No. But for the first time in history, millions of people have access to these platforms. And the other thing is, these comedians are losing their jobs. Colbert will be off the air within 12 weeks, but he is so huge that if he takes a little break and decides to go independent, as he probably will, he's going to build up some platform. And if you've already created a brand for yourself, you're already well known and well respected, you can go independent around the corporate outlets. And that's what I expect Colbert to do. Remember, Paramount also owns Comedy Central, so we don't know how long The Daily Show will last. If Paramount takes over Warner, we don't know how long John Oliver will last. So all of these people are so big as comedians, they can go independent, like the fellow who started Zateo went independent after he got laid off or got his show taken away at MSNBC. That's
Oh, yeah, right.
Mehdi Hassan.
Yeah.
Well, let's go back. Ken Wachsberger, I was a part of Liberation News Service. I was at the founding meeting in October, just before the March on the Pentagon. We had nothing. We had a room full of like 30 people, many of whom already had underground papers. And within a year, we had 400 subscribers, and we were powerful enough that the FBI wanted to infiltrate us and break up the news service. And we had the good sense to run away to a farm and start the No Nukes movement. Whenever I talk about No Nukes, I always thank J. Edgar Hoover for breaking up Liberation News Service. And there's a movie about it, if anyone wants to know. But Ken Wachsberger, what are the parallels? Jeff just laid it out beautifully. I mean, what are the parallels you see between the underground press and what we're dealing with today?
Well, they're similar. I think the alternative press today, which is, like we said, the blogs, the podcasts. I don't know if there's a network uniting all of them. I don't know.
There's not at the moment.
I think that would be real helpful. Like we had Underground Press Syndicate back when, Underground Press and the UPS. It was the first nationwide network of underground papers. All over the country, they were united. We would share papers with each other, and it brought us together. We got to know everyone. It would be helpful if the blogs and the podcasts had some kind of a connection like that.
Well, the question is, we need to write about that. Jeff, I mean, we've got the network. Among ourselves, we can put out our articles. There's Counterpunch, there's Common Dreams, there's all these places websites. We do. There's a bunch of websites. There's a bunch of bloggers. There's a bunch of podcasts. Jeff.
Yeah, real quickly, there's a coalition of independent news outlets. I just put it in the chat. It's called the Movement Media Alliance. They met last year in Ithaca, which is where I taught independent media. And they're going to have another meeting in Ithaca in April. So yeah, there is an effort to get these independent, non-corporate, non-conglomerated news outlets to work together and collaborate better.
That's excellent.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, here's a question. What if Colbert and Kimmel and Desi Lydak and Rachel Maddow and Jon Stewart all got together and started their own network? Would they be more powerful than CBS?
As long as they could find a way to reach the public, they would be quite powerful. Kimmel, because of the outrage, this is something we should take credit for our victories. There was so much outrage when Kimmel was indefinitely suspended by Disney that he was back on the air within 3 days. So he's been extended through, I think, the end of 2027. But, Colbert is going to be a free man in May. and we don't know how long some of these others are going to last. But sure, if people get together and can find a platform that will not censor them. Remember, the Ellisons have taken over TikTok. With the help of Trump, the US operation of TikTok is now controlled. The biggest shareholders are Oracle, Larry Ellison. And that's because a lot of young people were learning the truth about the massacres in Gaza through TikTok. And so they took it. And we need to figure out a way of getting around the corporate platforms, because there's a lot of independent talent that would find a big audience if they could be heard.
Well, Dave Saltman, you know Larry Ellison. I think you knew Bob Iger. Bob Iger had a hand in bringing Kimmel back at Disney, I think, right?
Bob Iger is a having yes. Let me just, before I address that question, I want you to. I worked for Ramparts back in the day, and I worked for CBS when Paley was still running the company, and I worked for Turner when Ted Turner was still running the company, and I got it. And I also worked for Spy Magazine when it was nothing, and I was there when Saturday Night Live started from nothing, from a complete, wasted hole in the schedule, to the most important television show of the 20th century. And I'm telling you, it was in every case, it was a case of build it and they will come. Nobody, when Ted Turner started CNN, I was working at CBS. And I thought, a 24-hour TV news service, that is the dumbest idea I ever heard in my life. And in fact, the first year or two of Ted's covering the United Nations, you know what his coverage consisted of? He set up a camera on East 42nd Street that just pointed at the Secretariat building all day. And that was the coverage. 24 hours a day was an exterior of the building, until finally and guess what? The guy he hired as the UN correspondent, he's still working there. Richard Roth.
Still pointing the camera.
Still pointing the camera.
In front of the camera. He finally got in front of the camera.
Yeah, good.
You know where they got their cameramen from? No real cameraman who was a union member of IA in those days would he wouldn't work for CNN. Are you kidding me? They went down to an Explorer post downtown where there was some guy who was teaching these young Eagle Scouts how to run TV cameras. Those guys are still working at CNN.
Well, they won't be after what's his name takes over. So this is really critically important. We're going to have this discussion some more. Jeff and Dave and Ken, we're going to recruit people from the media community to go through this, because this, I thought, frankly, comparing the story of the attack on Iran with the purchase of CNN, I thought they were equivalent, basically. I mean, the idea that a friend of Trump's could own both CBS and CNN is beyond terrifying. So Ken really has the keys to the kingdom here, because we have to figure out how we got around it in the 60s and what we're going to do now.
There's one problem with that strategy, with all due respect, Mr. Wachsberger. I'm sorry to inform you all. I'm older than obviously everybody else here, because I worked for ABC in the 1970s, when it was owned by, guess who? Paramount.
Well, there you go. Yes. Well, we're going to have to figure this out.
There's a long history of Paramount's ownership of networks. That argument will never fly.
Yes, but remember this. Remember that Charlie Chaplin and Mary Pickford, we need Mary Pickford back. Maybe Rachel Maddow is the reincarnation of Mary Pickford. But we need to figure out, as they did, because they started Universal, right? Or was
it? They started United Artists.
United Artists. And they changed Hollywood. We need to do that now.
That's how the National Lampoon started. That's where John Belushi came from.
Right. And
These
by the
are
way,
all
just
just
for everybody's, David Saltman and I were both, because we went to Michigan, we're both very close personal friends of Gilda Radner. And you know, I wish to God she was with us now. But I think Colbert is more powerful than CBS. And we will see. But we have to make that happen. We really have to make that happen.
I'm
So
telling
let's
you,
go.
this guy, he's lost his job as of, I think, May 21. And they're going to start new stuff. And it's nothing, us old gray hairs, we don't, it's being done by people much younger than us.
Well, thank God. Thank
which is
goodness.
good.
You
Yeah.
know, really.
Trust me, things are starting. These younger people are meeting. Everyone knows how bad that the corporatization of the news media is worse than it's ever been in history. We had the Hearst, we had other it's never been this bad. The theory of
Yes, but there's never
democracy.
been an internet. There's never been an internet, Jeff.
Well, the internet gives these platforms that we've mentioned as independent, non-conglomerated, some way of reaching the public. But this kinds of concentration, the theory of democracy is that a public can inform itself through a free and independent press. But we've got a point now where Trump is choosing who owns the media. He helped Larry Ellison get TikTok. He helped Larry Ellison and his son David take over
Right.
Paramount now it's Paramount Skydance. And they're in the process of trying to get Paramount Skydance to take over Warner. The government is not supposed to choose who runs the media. That goes against everything we understand about democracy and journalism.
But you know, when the fascists take over a country, the first thing they go for is the radio station.
That's why this
we
seems.
Now, look, we ran Liberation News Service with a mimeograph machine, and we moved mountains. So the internet is a whole other ballgame. We got to come back, Jeff, Dave, Ken. You got to come back with us, and we need to scheme this out. Bring that guy you're mentioning, Jeff. Let's try and find people under 110 to join us. But the history of LNS is and that Ken has documented is incredibly important, and we need to do this. So let's get together again next week and keep doing this. Jeff, keep bringing people. Salty, you wanted me to contact the woman Mary Walsh, which I will do. But let's have a media section going forward. We need to.
I would get in touch with Barbara Cochran.
All right, well, we'll talk about that. But
Yeah,
let's
she worked
everybody on
everywhere.
this call, let's brainstorm. We need to have a media discussion every week going forward, just like an election protection.
Just one other thing. I just want to remind you of one other thing. I was there right at the very beginning of Ramparts. And I don't know if anyone even remembers this. Ramparts actually had an existence before it was political. It was a liberal Catholic weekly.
Mm-hmm.
And the key man is your old pal, Robert Scheer. Robert Scheer
Bob on. That's a great idea.
Bob Scheer had the vision.
Right. And he just had a public session in LA with Oliver Stone, who I managed to insult, but nonetheless.
Oh, well, you should have been there and beaten that guy to a.
Anyway, here we are. We're going to move forward. And listen, we have now another great veteran of the media, Roger Rapoport, who today, as we speak, has broken a huge story in the Detroit Free Press. Now, Salty and Roger and I are all in Ann Arbor at the same time. Roger became editor of the Michigan Daily right after I was editorial director. And Roger, do you want to tell us about the story? But again, next week, come back. We're going to keep doing this on the media. Roger's story is about the Palisades nuclear plant. You want to tell us about that, Roger? And Jeff, you should know about this. This should be in your network.
I'm just trying to get
I'll listen for a few minutes, then I have to run.
Maybe unmute.
Okay, Ken.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you, Ken. Come again next week, please. Go ahead, Roger.
Yeah, okay.
So you muted yourself. There you go.
So I'm just about to post a link to the Detroit Free Press story. And it's interesting listening to all of you talk about how the coverage is going. This piece, which ran today on the Detroit Free Press, there was also a piece on NPR in West Michigan, which I'll share with the group, basically documents everything that we've been talking about. This is probably, in light of what's going on, the place where Trump is the most vulnerable of all. And just to give you a perspective, the entire nuclear industry, I'm not now talking about the opposition, I'm talking about the people that own the plants, are absolutely terrified about this plant reopening for a whole bunch of reasons, because it documents everything we've been talking about for the last hour, which is that the media, and I've talked to editors who are very familiar with the story, who are in a position of really understanding what you've been talking about. And they've just said to me flat out, and these are not people that have any axe to grind or anything like that. And they basically are saying, I cannot believe that no one is covering this story. We talked about the Washington Post today, and the New York Times, and CNN. CNN is not covering the story. So when you start talking about the networks as they stand today, and Colbert, Jimmy Fallon, Kimmel, you name it, nobody gets, Harvey, what you've been doing for 50 years. Now, there's something I want to share with you. We got a new ally today. Some of you have heard of Stephen Miller. Well, he has a wife, and she also works in Washington. And she came out for nuclear power today in the Washington Post.
No, solar. It's for solar.
I'm sorry. It came out for
Thank
solar.
God.
I'm losing it here. She came out for solar today in the Washington Post. So we're not as far as we think we are from people who are on the other side, understanding, Harvey, that you've been right all along. You've been right for over 50 years. And here's what's going on in Michigan. So not only is no one covering this story, not only is the national media not covering the story. So what do you think is going to happen to Palisades, as has been very well documented? They're 2 years behind. They got another delay this week from the NRC. They cannot get this plant open, and God forbid they do open it, they're going to have to shut it down. Now let me try to explain.
This is the nuclear power plant on the west coast of Michigan that's shut down and has been taken over basically by a mob operation in New Jersey.
It wasn't just shut down. It was shut down by one of the most experienced nuclear power plant operators in the world that ran it for over 15 years and decided, number one, they couldn't afford it, and number two, it was too dangerous to operate, and they closed it early. And Governor Gretchen Whitmer and her former governor, Jennifer Granholm, who at that point was Secretary of Energy, came up with an idea. They decided that they could take this plant that didn't work, that a very experienced company had shut down because it wasn't profitable, and they decided they could make it work. And right now, get this, they've hired 600 people that are going to be permanent employees at $5 million each. $5 million for each of 600 employees. They spent $3.1 billion to get this thing going, and they're 2 years behind. They still can't get it to work. And to make it even worse, the welding doesn't work because they haven't met any of the government standards. They've welded over old welds. They've done things that no nuclear power plant in the world would ever do. This plant couldn't even get a license to start. So they dug a hole, and here's what they're doing. They're determined to open it because they have an initial public offering that will get this company $10 billion. It's called Holtec. And once they open it, they're going to have to shut it down because there's so many problems. They have repaired a record 1,400 tubes in the steam generator. They can't get the reactor pressure head vessel fixed, which every other reactor probably in the country has already fixed this problem. They never did it, and that's part of why they closed it, because the cost of the new steam generators and the new reactor head pressure containment vessel is $1.5 billion, which they don't have. So here's what happens. When they open the plant, if they do, every single day that it's down, because it's going to go down, they're on the hook for millions of dollars a day because they have to go out on the spot market. And as you've seen today, what's going on the spot market for energy doesn't look very good because of what's going on in Iran. So they're going to have to go out and fork out all this money, which they don't really have, which means they're going to go bankrupt on this LLC. And guess who is going to repay the $1.52 billion loan that they don't have the money to repay? You and me. Now, how did all this happen? It happened because Donald Trump doubled down on what Biden, Whitmer, and Granholm did and is gutting all the regulations at the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. People are being laid off as we speak on all new reactors. And technically, this is not a new reactor. This is an old reactor being restarted. And it's going to be a public relations media nightmare because, number one, Trump gutted the NRC. Number two, because the plant doesn't work. Number three, because the taxpayers on the hook. And even worse than that, the ratepayers who were supposed to get subsidized power, there's no subsidy if the plant doesn't work. So
And here's what everybody should understand. Roger is breaking this story in the Detroit, the biggest paper in Michigan, for the first time. And he got his hands on the key document. And what's happening is they've taken the whole plant, they're trying to restart it. They've got a mob operation based in New Jersey called Holtec that has no experience whatsoever reopening or even operating a nuclear plant. And everybody in the industry is going to freak out. And even people who are pro-nuclear, especially people who are pro-nuclear, are going to go completely nuts.
The number
And
one
nobody's covering it. Roger, you're hearing it here from the horse's mouth for the first time because Roger's article is the first in-depth coverage of this nuclear catastrophe that has Donald Trump's hands all over it. And one thing else, Roger, with the war in Iran, energy prices are going to go through the roof. Totally. And here they've got all this money tied up in a nuclear power plant that's never going to work. It's mind-boggling. So you heard it here first from
This is
Roger
why
Rapoport.
everybody from Stephen Miller's wife to my principal source in this article, the whistleblower, was the number one guy at the largest utility in the country, Con Ed in New York, the vice president for nuclear. He's been in this industry for 40 years. And he, like everybody else who actually knows what goes on in a nuclear power plant, is horrified that this company that has never run a nuclear power plant ever and has had a long history of all sorts of problems all over the country, even internationally, that they would be trusted with a plant that nobody in their right mind would operate. So what this means is when this plant fails, suddenly there will be an avalanche of media coverage. And it will be pretty much like after the plane crash in Washington last year or like the Boeing Max. And frankly, it doesn't matter whether or not what happens within the plant, because regardless of whatever goes wrong, they're going to have to shut it down for safety
Right.
reasons. So this
is like getting an article on 3 Mile Island before it happens.
That's exactly right.
And because this isn't an accident waiting to happen. This is an accident in progress. And
Sonny?
this article that Roger broke today is you can't get around this stuff. Anybody knows you don't even have to know anything about nuclear power. I know we have this section where we talk about nuclear power and we go deep. This is brain fog here. They cannot get around what Roger has reported here. And
Sonny, real quick, people
Yes,
are
Mike,
in
go
the
ahead.
chat are asking for a link to Roger's article because everybody's extremely interested in it. And
Roger,
second,
can
I have
you
a
put the
question
link?
for Roger real quick. Are they trying to engineer a meltdown? Because it seems like they're trying to engineer a meltdown.
Well, the good news is that this plant is never going to get to that stage because they've done such a bad job with it that they're not going to be able to operate it. And that's really what's going to happen. They're just going to have to shut it down.
And you have to remember, this is the flagship of all these other reactors that they want to reopen. 3 Mile Island, Indian Point, they want to surround with small reactors. And you have a whole backload of the small reactor BS that this is going to sink because it's so insane that even the most stalwart pro-nuclear people are going to flip out when they see Roger's article. That's how bad it is.
Harvey, basically the gospel according to Harvey is this. I'm putting the basically everything that we've been saying is being played out by a company that never ever was ever set up to run a nuclear power plant. They simply aren't in that
Right.
position. It's just not what they do.
Right. This is like General Mills taking over to build automobiles. I mean, it makes no sense whatsoever. It's insane. Let me get Diane Dorigo, who has more experience in the nuclear industry than me. Go ahead, Diane. Yes, you're on. Oh, shoot. Hold on. There.
Hi, Diane Dorigo, Nuclear Information Resource Service. I haven't seen Roger's article, but I am super excited to get a look at that. We've been fighting against this restart for a long, long time, and I wanted to throw into the mix, appalling as all of this, is that 3 Mile Island 1 is also, I'm sorry, 3 Mile Island 2, the one that melted down. No, yeah, it's 3 Mile Island 1 that did not melt down, is also being threatened with reopening, as is the Duane Arnold closed nuclear reactor in Iowa. So there are 3 closed nuclear reactors on the verge of being pushed to reopen. And a very sad piece of information I learned today is that NRDC may actually support the Duane Arnold reopening, which is completely appalling since they have over the decades opposed nuclear activities and nuclear weapons and power and all of that. So I wanted to raise the eyebrows there.
Roger's article, which I haven't read yet, by the way, but I know I got the decal. Roger's article should explode the idea that these old reactors can be revived. And the bottom line, unfortunately, is we have a phalanx of Democratic governors who are supporting nuclear power, starting with Gavin Newsom, who has absolutely stabbed us in the back here on Diablo Canyon. And then Shapiro in Pennsylvania, Pritzker in Illinois, Granholm, and then Whitmer in Michigan.
Did you say Hochul in New York?
Yeah, Hochul is the worst. She wants $33 billion to fund old nuclear plants. But this article, I think, is really going to cast a big shadow. So we're going to have to work very hard to get this out because, this is a big deal. And having had our discussion on the media, we need to find a way. A part of it will be, by the way, the March 28th marches. That's one of the reasons the No Kings, No Nukes, this situation in Michigan. The Palisades is, I say, the lead reactor that they want to restart. If we can sink that project, and they have an IPO coming up, and where we really need to win the support is in the financial community. Because if the financial people see this and see how insane it is, who's going to invest in this, Roger? Do you think this will, with the biggest argument that we've gotten, the most coherent attack on building new reactors has actually come from Cato, the right-wing free market think tank. And so this, and anybody with any money who reads Roger's article is going to run for the exits, I would think. But let's hope. Roger, what do you think about that? Then Milo, I don't know if you have a hand or not.
Well, the people who are the most terrified about this, believe it or not, is actually the industry itself, because this is a pipeline. It's a blank check, really, for everything we've been talking about. I mean, I understand the value of the Epstein story. I understand how that tarnishes Trump's image, and I understand there's a lot of ways we've talked about today. By the way, I just posted the right link. I put it. The Free Press has a paywall, so I put it on Medium, and you can read it now. And I also have this WGVU article. But here's the point, Harvey. The point is that everything that this group has been talking about is now being played out by a rogue operator that doesn't know what they're doing. That's why they haven't opened it, because they know they're going to have to shut it down. And the only question is when they're going to shut it down and how much damage that's going to do public relation wise. And the problem that the industry faces is that Trump himself is financially invested in this. So the scandal that Trump himself has gutted the regulation so that he can go ahead and get billions of dollars out of his own government to start a family nuclear power industry that he's doing with Devin Nunes, the former congressman from California. And that, of course, is going to be a huge scandal that will transcend everybody, because Wall Street hasn't been investing in these plants for more than 2 decades. They've given up, basically. They're not building any new ones, and the SMRs don't work. We already know that. And so they haven't proven that they can even get them going. So it's all a pipe dream. And that is a scandal of enormous magnitude, because it affects basically the corruption angle. That is, that he's gutting reactor safety while he's investing in a reactor himself, and the fact that he's gotten rid of the NRC people at a time when this reactor should have never been licensed, and federal and state money has been going to, and all politicians on both sides have been paying for it. Plus, the industry has been bankrolling campaigns. We know this about the Cuomo campaign in New York and so on. So it's just one thing after another. And now we've even got people in the White House talking about solar. So it's a
really, that's mind-boggling.
real
Well,
turn.
the question for Holtec is, are they going to be able to slip through their IPO before Palisades gets killed?
No, they were supposed to do it in January. They can't
Right,
even
so
get the plant going. They don't even
You,
know.
Roger, you may have cost Holtec $10 billion with this article. Mazel tov. And I will say, by the way, I will say one more thing. There's another shoe that's about to drop, we hope soon, in the Epstein files, which is the money laundering. Okay, the women, it's terrible, unforgivable, and pure death. But the bottom line is that Epstein and Trump and Putin were laundering the money. And that's the other piece of the Epstein situation that has yet to come out. Mila Reese, and we're almost out of time. We're going to stop at 4. Go ahead, Mila, please.
Diane DeRigo, I raised my virtual hand when I heard you talk about your disappointment with NRDC. You may know that NRDC decided to support the opening of the dump for plutonium-contaminated nuclear weapons waste in southern New Mexico. Excuse me, I choked on that one. The WIP site, NRDC had initially been objecting to the facility, and then they made some kind of a backroom deal, and they were trading off opposition for the Yucca Mountain high-level waste dump in Nevada, and said that they were fine with the opening of the waste isolation pilot plant in southern New Mexico near the Carlsbad National Caverns. We really felt stabbed in the back and betrayed by NRDC at that time. And it's interesting because they do a lot of good work. But they're supporting the restart of what?
Dwayne Arnold, the reactor in Iowa.
Wow.
But we will, let's all read Roger's report. We'll come back and talk about this next week.
Okay.
But this is a really big deal. And we also are getting it around to the technical community. So, Roger, we can pick up this article off your website. Is that right?
Yeah, it's on my website, but I also just gave a link. You can just go to rogerrapoport.com and you'll see it right there on their latest writings. Okay.
Since you're almost done. Oh, go ahead, Roger.
Go ahead, Diane. Go ahead.
And
I just wanted to say that March 4th, which is the day after tomorrow, is a comment deadline to the Department of Energy on their proposal, their already adopted policy to build nuclear reactors without compliance with environmental regulations. My organization, Nuclear Information and Resource Service, does have an alert, and I can get that to, I don't know, do I give that to Mila?
Put it in the chat, yes, but put it in the chat.
Yeah, I'm not sure I can get it in the chat, but I will
give
try.
it to Mila. Mila, we'll get it out there. We have a radio show. In fact, maybe Diane.
Diane's joining us on Wednesday for the
You're coming on
recording.
Wednesday, okay. Yeah. So listen, everybody.
But the deadline is Wednesday for people to get your comments in. We can all be ignored, but we're also setting it up so that we're going to be able to sue over it. We've got legal comments and all of that. So we're really going to take this one by the horns.
So, Diane, if people go to nirs.org, will they find how to?
I will talk to our web mistress and make sure that there's something up there that they can do.
Your web mistress is a webster. So listen, this has been an incredible 2 hours, totally action-packed, incredibly intense. Mike Hirsch, you've got our hand. You want to tell us about the votes? There's votes today or tomorrow in Texas, right?
Well, we've got primaries coming up tomorrow in Texas, North Carolina, and there are a few other places as well. If people want to volunteer, I dropped the link in the chat. And I also wanted to point out that with the unconstitutional, illegal attack on Iran, and gas prices already spiking, we have to be very careful that that doesn't open up another BS avenue for people to claim we need nukes. Because they'll say natural gas and gasoline are too expensive, we need nukes, which we all know is just complete crap, but we should keep our eyes open for it.
But everybody, you're right, 100%, Mike. But everybody knows that you can't build the nukes fast enough, and that they're really out to lunch now with energy, and it's gonna I think you're gonna see a lot more people pushing solar. Elon Musk has jumped back into the solar business. Not that we want him there, but here we are, Mike. You're 100% right. But this push for energy now, especially with Roger's piece coming out, showing how if they can't even reopen an old reactor, they're not going to be able to build the new ones.
Well,
Go ahead.
We could suggest that Elon Musk go and investigate the sun in one of his rockets.
Absolutely.
And maybe bring some of his billionaire buddies with him.
Really. Ken Wachsberger, great to have you with us. And Roger, you're a hero. We look forward to everybody's going to read the piece. Come back next week, and we will keep doing this. Steve Caruso, thank you for engineering. And it's 4:00 California time. Take a 20-minute nap, then go toke up, and we will see you in a week. No nukes, everybody. Ken Wachsberger, great to have you with us. Ace Hoffman, thanks for joining. It's been really a mind-bogger, and we will get our minds blown again a week from today. Thank you so much, everybody. And no nukes.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, you guys. Ace will have you back on next week, and you'll get to talk. Okay. See you, everybody. No nukes.
Take care.
Bye-bye.